Hello and welcome to today's historic Best of 3 gameplay and deck tech video on Blue-Green Hardened Scales. Hardened Scales is a thematic tribal deck that we have visited before that loves +1/+1 counters on creatures. So we like to use not only Hardened Scales, but cards that like themselves having +1/+1 counters on them or can give +1/+1 counters. Like your Explore package cards of the world, that allow you to either get +1/+1 counters, which the deck likes to do, or to, say, filter through your deck and sort of increase the consistency of your draws. Very useful. Cards like Tenacious Pup does not himself have, or not itself have, +1/+1 counters, but does give +1/+1 counters, as well as the other keyword counters on other, creatures. So nice enabler to give things. Stonecoil, a card that comes into play with however many 1/1 counters we can put into it. And we have cards like Bred for the Hunt as ways to turn our naturally +1/+1 counter heavy creatures into card draw, and some general sort of removal spells and quality of life things in the form of Incongruity and your Winterthorn Blessings and Primal Mights as a way to sort of help get through what our opponent might want to put up in ways to sort of block and stall our game plan. Last little note, I'm also running 4 Simic Ascendancies since I figured Simic Ascendancy also cares about +1/+1 counters, so I figured Simic Ascendancy and Hardened Scales kind of go hand in hand for, the meme and like the bit here. And Simic Ascendancy, every once in a while you will win with a Simic Ascendancy, but it can also, and is more often just used as a way to put +1/+1 counters on your creatures and a way to sort of bait some removal, as people will overvalue Simic Ascendancy's role in our deck. We also, on our last little note, we're not running Collected Company, since in order to run Simic Ascendancy and Hardened Scales, it's very difficult to get to the appropriate amount of I think it's about 30 hits for Collected Company that need to be in a deck. So in my own experience, Hardened Scales and Collected Company decks don't really mesh very well together. Of course, you can technically run them both, but by running them both, you are diluting the game plan that both cards individually want. Now, if you happen to run any sort of Hardened Scales list with Collected Company and find success, I would love to know about it in the comments down below. And that is all for the main deck. Sideboard is a load of relatively self-explanatory cards. The 2 more, Incubation and Incongruity, which is pretty much only ever the Incongruity, as forms of creature removal, which blue and green lack on the whole. Negate, for the obvious reason. Scavenging Ooze as graveyard hate, and it does also have +1/+1 counters on it, so it's pretty nice. We have Carnage Tyrant here for the more control-y and heavy counter decks, usually your blue-white controls of the world. A couple of Tamiyo Safekeeping if they're running a lot of individual removal spells or lots of sweepers. A couple extra Tamiyos can be nice if you feel that your opponent is going to have a load of extra removal. Reclamation Sage for obvious artifact and enchantment hate. And Arasta as a sort of bet against the absolute prevalence of the blue-green Phoenix decks of the world. I don't think those decks are like particularly overpowered or anything, but Arasta is a good sideboard card. Arasta herself having reach and also making other reach tokens is a very good way to just sort of generally gum up the board and slow down the Is-It Phoenix deck. That is the base list. We'll go on now into game number 1. And game number 1 with our blue-green scales list. See what our opponent wants to do. We are on the draw, which is totally fine. It's not the most interesting opener in the world, but it's fine enough. Opponent plays a Temple of Mastery, so some sort of Simic Mirror. We'll go ahead and Breeding Pool and let it enter tapped. See if we can determine anything that our opponent is running. Stomping Grounds. So they're a Temur deck with Izzet deck sleeves and a Rakdos Avatar, which is an option. We'll go ahead and Breeding Pool, playing Simic Ascendancy. Totally okay that we give up the goods immediately. Please have a counterspell. Really, you just... Okay, I mean... I guess you're probably going to play that Bone Crusher next turn. As you do. We'll go ahead and Botanical Sanctum here. I think we'll just go ahead and Branchwalker here. See what we can find at the top. You know what? Library. Why not? We can also sort of block with our Branchwalker. Since we haven't yet determined what our opponent's deck is, or what role we should be taking on, the more aggressive or the more controlling role. Go ahead and block while we're just trying to sit here and gather some information. We'll play a Cascade. Don't really have that much to do. I think we'll go ahead and Stonecoil on 3, since they already know we have the Safekeeping. Really, a Rewind? Okay. Temur Tempo? Is there going to be a Night Pack Ambusher? Get the fuck out of here! I called it! I'm not even mad! Alright, well done. You're going to get another wolf out of this, but alright, yeah. Why splash the red, though? That's what's confusing me. I mean... Okay, I guess. We'll go ahead and Jadelight Ranger. See what our opponent does. This deck does just get totally dumpstered by loads of just, like, counter spells. We'll go ahead and keep that on top. Take some Simic Ascendancy triggers. Go ahead and just sit here and pass. If our opponent decides to attack with one of the creatures, I believe we're okay with making the trade. Of course, they do not, which is understandable. So we're going to be playing the more controlling deck here. A Sinister Sabotage. I think I'm weirdly gonna Incongruity their Night Pack Ambusher, since that card can quickly let them get away with the game. They might have another counterspell, but at 2 mana, the available counterspells for an Incongruity are just narrower. Yeah, they counter the Hardened Scales, which does suck, to be entirely honest. What do we bring in? I guess in game 2 we can bring in some Carnage Tyrants and maybe some Negates, maybe? What do we cut, though, is the question. If our opponent goes to trade here, we, again, pretty happily make this trade. If our opponent wants to counter a Tamiyo's Safekeeping, then okay, I guess some shit happens sometimes. Why the red? The red's what's screwing me. It seems I don't see the benefit in splashing the red, since traditionally the there was always a Simic Flash deck that was popular in Standard long ago, and I have seen rarely in Historic, but I don't see why you splash the red, other than for removal, I guess? It's very weird, but I guess that's their decision. We'll just go ahead and play a big old scary Stonecoil for as much as we can. We'll probably go down a couple Simic Ascendancies since our opponent now knows the game plan, and having 4 of them for consistency's sake isn't that useful. So it'll be... we'll go ahead and block the Spellbreaker since it's the biggest body. And the Trample would have sucked also, might I also add. I don't think there's anything we do to live here. Hi, honey. We'll go ahead and let them win. They won fair and square. The deck is very fun, and you can get some wins off. And to be honest, like most things, I understand the Simic Ascendancy is probably not very good, but god damn it, it's on theme, and I'm cool with taking some L's for the theme. Now, a couple, as we talked about, Simic Ascendancies are probably going to come out. Some Carnage Tyrants going in is not a bad idea. We'll go down 1 Stonecoil since the deck doesn't appear to have a whole lot of multicolored spells. 1 Negate there. And yeah, we'll do that. We're happy with that. Hi, Carmel. Who's my little tiny brown sugar baby girl? Come on, come hang out with Dad. I'll pet you if you come hang out. I just kind of need you to be within arm's reach for pets, you know. We'll go ahead and play first because we have a brain. 1 lander, it's real bad. We're going to throw that back. 2 lander is admittedly better, but goddamn, not by much. We'll go ahead and throw the Stonecoil back. We will Botanical Sanctum on turn 1 and play the pup. Our opponent is mulliganing, which is useful information to know. That we're not the only one rolling them 1s on a d20, as it were. Well, we have more cards than them, so that's kind of useful. Original plan is still the appropriate one. We would love a blue source, so maybe we could hold an Essence Capture. I love Temple of the Bad, that's a cool art style. We'll go for the Boseiju, though, in a vacuum, since it does at least give us, you know, access to colored mana. Karn's Bastion is a nice little utility land, but we only have 2 in the deck for a reason. Any more is really sort of asking for trouble to go. Let's see. They have some sort of probably a stomp, maybe? Really? Okay, we're gonna keep that. Why would you not stomp the Branchwalker at that point? I'm very confused. It was Fire Prophecy. Okay. I still don't... I mean, if they win, good on them. They won fair and square. But I still maintain my point of I don't know if it's why you're splashing for red. A 3rd color is like a significant investment. But that's on them, I suppose. We'll go ahead and Bred for the hunt, even though we don't have any 1/1 counter creatures anymore. Clothis is an option, I suppose. Well, that would have been very nice to have a turn ago, so that's real cool. It's not the most cool. If I go X is 2, so it turns to 3, so that's not good enough. Go ahead and pop here. No point in attacking, as the Cruel Spellbreaker will just block it freely. That Clothis is, credit given, gonna really start to mess us up. We might just eat the 4 damage and try and make something happen here. They are down to 1 card in hand, and our hope is that will give us what we need. It's not a land. We'll go ahead and Winterthorn Blessing, 1 of the pups, to pin down the Spellbreaker for a turn. Unless they're gonna rewind that? Or counter it in some way? What are you doing here? Do you bounce the Bred for the hunt? I mean, to be fair, that's like a good option if you have the Brazen Borrower. Okay, Return to Nature is like a good sideboard call. He doesn't get rid of the Blessing. Why does he? Yeah, I was about to say, why do you not get rid of the Blessing? I'm very confused. While funny, I think we're gonna just, again, Winterthorn, keep that Gruul Spellbreaker pinned down and try and sort of duke this out. Admittedly, the closest is... Oh, God. Oh, right. He's got the... Jesus. Okay, so if I do... X is equal to 2, 2, 4. 4 hits the Spellbreaker. Okay, so that's the plan. Breeding Pool enters play untapped. We Primal Might for 2. X equal 2. One of the pups targets a Spellbreaker. Bringing it to 4 and killing it. Also bringing the Devotion down to turn Clothis back into an enchantment alone. Admittedly, we're in some trouble. Ugh, it's not great. We're on like 2-turn clock, and I don't know if we have the ability to beat that. I guess we honestly weirdly just Primal Might for 3 solely for damage. It is the only way I see 5, 6, 7. Okay, we have a turn here. And credit given to our opponent. If they beat us fair and square. They could just have a burn spell and we'd be done. Although... No, that's not... Oh, man. Okay, so... Oh, he's at 9. So if I Karn's Bastion, they each get an additional 1 counter, hitting for 8. Am I gonna be 1 damage? Did I miss damage at any point? I don't know if I missed damage at some point. Credit given to our opponent. This has been a fun game. Okay, so we're... Yeah, okay. So they're at 3. Man, that Clothis... Credit given to them. That Clothis really saved them. If they did not play that Clothis, we would have probably won this game. All other things being equal and all that. That was actually a really good game. And still did a good job of kind of showing the deck off. Hell, showing both decks off. That was a pretty fun game. We'll go on to game number 2. And game number 2 with our little blue-green scales deck. Again, we go first because we have a brain. 2 lands, but only 1's colored sources. We have 3 1-drops, and I'm going to keep this with fully acknowledging that this could go totally sideways. I think we're going to pup on 1 so that we can apply as much pressure early on for such a potentially weak opener. Swamp from our opponent into a Vampire of the Diamond. Thank God we found that, by the way. Our opponent is more than likely on Vampires and not on Death Touch Tribal, sadly. We'll do the Hardened Scales. Go ahead and attack with the pup here. Does take the trade. Hopefully get a Death Toucher off the board. Hopefully we can draw a creature to use our Tenacious Pup on. Legion Lieutenant. Hey! I don't blame you a solitary bit. Weirdly, I'm actually gonna Tenacious Pup. I know that sounds crazy, but I want to Oran-Rief Ooze next turn. Ideally hit a green source so I can also keep up a Tamiyo's Safekeeping. Our opponent could play Soaring 3, Imperious Bloodlord or whatever. Radiant Destiny, almost certainly choosing vampires. As you should. Okay, this isn't exactly what I want, which is I'm not over the moon about. But the original plan of the Oran-Rief Ooze, also getting tokens from the, what's it called? The Tenacious Pup trigger. I think we'll give the tokens to the pup this turn. Honestly, pretty good aggressive opening. If at all possible next turn, if we brick and hit nothing we can use, we'll just keep Safekeeping open. Hopefully we aren't going to get too punished. Ugh. Okay, fuck. Really not good. Vampire of the Dire Moon is a goddamn all-star. If I could have... No, that's not really what I want either. Ah, shit. Okay, I guess we can attack with all. I think we're okay, right? If you double block the pup wins. If you can chump block the pup, but we will both have trample. You could Vampire the Dire Moon, and whatever you block with the Vampire of the Dire Moon, my plan is to use the Safekeeping now. That's kind of what I thought. Does he choose to double block, even though it doesn't do anything? He does not. So the original plan, Safekeeping the Ooze to ensure that it lives another turn. We trample through with both of our creatures. The real question is... Actually, I'm going to keep the Incongruity, since if they play a particularly large and scary creature, which vampires can do. Aerialist is up there, to be honest. Alright! Yeah! Admittedly good openings on both sides. Opponent is largely more creature-based. Stonecoil might be useful. There are, as we saw, due to Ixalan, plenty of multicolored vampires floating around. We're gonna need to play the more controlling route, so maybe you go down one Ascendancy for another Safekeeping. Maybe one Stonecoil, because they're probably gonna have black removal for the other Safekeeping. We're going to be playing the more controlling deck role, I believe, here. So just being able to have useful combat tricks, for lack of a better word, I believe will be the deciding factor. Oh, but this is no lands. No shit obvious. That's okay. Okay, we'll keep that. We'll go ahead and just throw back the Essence Capture, as we don't have the ability to cast it in hand. Opponent goes first. They do have the Orzhov sleeves. Good on you for being on theme. Plains and Pass. Okay, okay. We'll go ahead and Forest on one. We'll Island on turn 2, just to have access to both colors. We'll likely be playing the Merfolk Branchwalker, assuming we don't draw anything else of particular note. See what our opponent wants to do. The Vampires player has just a Plains, and now an Isolated Chapel. Plays the Legion Lieutenant. Totally understandable. Nothing wrong with that. Branchwalker enters, explores. You can get us a land drop. Not exactly a counter, but it'll do. The $1,000,000 question is, what do I do here? Opponent hasn't played anything, still has 2 lands and a Legion Lieutenant. A Knight of the Ebon Legion. We might actually just Primal Might that down on our turn. I suppose, technically, with their 1 Plains they have open, they could have a Mana Tithe, I guess. Okay, so if... But I have to go 1, 2. I have to pump it up 2 in order for the Branchwalker to live here. If they have the Mana Tithe, then good on you. I even really shouldn't be calculating that card. I just, in the past couple days of testing, have run into that card. Okay, so it just resolved. Didn't give them any priority. But it gave him priority... Why did it give him priority on his turn? What, did you have a 1-drop vampire and not play it? I mean, whatever, I guess. It's your call. Please. Legion's End. That is a all-star removal card. Of course, it's a sideboard card. You never play it any other time, but they are missing land drops. I didn't even pay attention. I was so enraptured by the Legion's End. We're going to go ahead and try and take advantage of this. Jadelight Ranger, just being the biggest creature in our hand. Explores twice. We'll gladly keep the pup. We also, with this, allow us to still keep a Tamiyo Safekeeping open. We do have a Boseiju who endures if you happen to play a... Nah, that's not good. I was going to say the Ascend card, Radiant Destiny, or whatever the hell that card's called. Yeah, Soaring cheating out a thing into play. It's not great. Sanctum Seeker, though, is not going to be your ticket out of here, Jack. I mean, it's a good card. Like, it's not bad. Should make that a little more clear. We'll go ahead and Tenacious Pup. Then play the Oran-Rief Ooze. We're actually going to give the Ooze's counter to the Pup. No point in attacking, since they can just block with the Sanctum Seeker. With their Sanctum Seeker. Opponent has 3 lands, Legion Lieutenant... Sorry, 4 lands, Legion Lieutenant, and a Sanctum Seeker. There's the Radiant Destiny that I was concerned about. You don't have it. You're not Ascended, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 lands, 5, 6, 7, 8. The Knight they're playing would make it 9, so they're not Ascended yet. Which is good. You sacrifice a vamp. Does he sacrifice? Really? You sacrifice that? I mean, I guess you know I have the Safekeeping. I suppose you just have to get rid of it somehow. Our opponent shouldn't attack, since we can just block with our now indestructible till end of turn card. Another Safekeeping is a fantastic draw. Do I? I think I just go face. With an Ooze and a whole board full of 1/1 countered creatures, I think we just go face. I'm attacking for 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 is 9. 9 and 3 is 12. I can proliferate and give them more counters. See what our opponent does. Okay. Opponent only blocked with a Sanctum Seeker. If we were to give it another 1/1 counter, it goes into 5, so it would not kill it. We can Boseiju down. By channeling the Boseiju, we can get rid of their Radiant Destiny, dropping that by 1/1, turning it into a 4/5. So weirdly, I think I'm gonna Tamiyo Safekeeping the Ooze again. I think we can just afford to push damage here. He can't use Soaring, Imperious Bloodlords, sacrifice a vampire to Lightning Helix a thing. He does give it... He does uptick it and give it a counter. Gains... Wait, what? Gains Death Touch and Light... Okay, so the Death Touch and Light Link is till end of turn, but the 1/1 counter is permanent, which is fine. Sanctum Seeker just totally resolves. Opponent has 5 lands in hand. A Legion's Lieutenant untapped. He has priority for something. That is... So he almost certainly has a removal spell. It's not a question of if. We're still going to go ahead and attack face. attacking with the Oran-Rief Ooze. Okay, we have declared the attack. The Oran-Rief has buffed our board. Go to blockers, see what they choose to block. I was gonna say I had the Karn's Bastion open. That was a fantastic game from our opponent also. I do have a vampire deck in the works, but I'm thinking of waiting for Capenna to blow all my wild cards, maybe. As that deck is pretty expensive if you really want to go all out. But thank you all for watching. Remember to like the video if you liked it. Sub if you like my grab bag of content and would like to see more. And if you have any sort of questions or comments down below, just keep them civil, and I'll do what I can to respond to them. Probably. I am, of course, a human being with a life to live. Thank you all very much, and stay safe out there. Bye-bye.